Hello, today we're going to talk a bit about UFW, or the Uncomplicated Firewall. UFW is a command line tool designed to simplify firewall management on Linux systems, particularly Ubuntu-based distributions. It is built on top of IP tables and provides a user-friendly way to define rules for controlling network traffic. UFW is relevant for all users, whether you're a basic user or a system administrator. These commands are easy to remember and use, even if you're new to firewalls, and they are pre-built profiles for various applications and common tasks for common services. While UFW simplifies rules management, IP tables still does the actual packet filtering at the kernel level. When you configure firewall rules using UFW, it translates those rules into IP table syntax behind the scenes and stores those rules in configuration files under the etc UFW directory. One thing to note is that if you try to manage IP tables manually while using UFW, you should be aware that UFW may change or overwrite or conflict with those IP table rules you created. UFW rules are easy to remember. So if you want to allow SSH to connect to your computer, all you have to do is type UFW allow SSH. Now here I have a fresh Ubuntu server installed, which is running OpenSSH server. So I've connected to it via SSH. And by default, Ubuntu often has UFW installed, but you can check by doing UFW status. And you can see it's installed but not running. And if it's not installed, it's easy to install with apt. But see, I already have it installed. And since UFW is based on IP tables, we can also check the status of IP tables. And see that that is installed, but there are no rules. If you are connecting to the server remotely using SSH, you need to enable SSH through the firewall before enabling UFW. Otherwise, you may disable your SSH connection and lock yourself out of the server. Then you can enable UFW via UFW enable. Choose yes. And then you can see your existing rules. Now that rule will allow SSH connections from anywhere, but it's best to restrict that to just a single IP, set of IPs, or perhaps even a subnet. Now to find your subnet, you can do a W, and you can see we're connecting from 134.129.125.57. So we can change our firewall rule to UFW allow, and we want to do TCP just like SSH protocol TCP from our subnet 134.129.125.57. And since we wanted a subnet, we do 24. That uses the first three numbers. And we wanted to go to anywhere. listening on port 22, which is our SSH port. Now we can look at our rules. And we have UFW from anywhere and UFW restricted to our subnet. And that's just kind of pointless. So let's get rid of the first and the last rule. So we can do a UFW status numbered, which shows us our rule numbers. And we can do UFW delete rule 1. Click yes. And then we can do this again, and we can see our rules are renumbered. And we can delete the last one by 2. And status again. And you can see we have UFW restricting input on port 2022 on port 22 to just the subnet 134.129.125. The next thing you should do is check your default firewall properties. These rules control how to handle traffic that does not explicitly match any other rules. By default, UFW should be set to deny all incoming connections and allow all outgoing connections. This means that anyone trying to reach your server will not be able to connect, while any application within the server should be able to reach the outside world. And then you create specific rules as exceptions to the deny policy. To check your UFW firewall default rules, you can do a UFW status verbose. And you can see we have incoming is denied, outgoing allowed, and routed disabled, because we are not a router. And we have port 22 open. Now, if you wanted to change these default rules, you can do something like UFW default deny outgoing. And now the default policy has been changed to deny, which is good for security, but be sure you open what you need to before you turn off everything going out. Otherwise, you'll have some issues. You need to open things like DNS port, perhaps SSH, perhaps HTTP or HTTPS to do updates. For example, now that we have turned off outgoing, and if we try to update our Linux installation with apt, we can do apt get update. And it's just going to sit there because HTTP and HTTPS are disabled. Well, actually, all outgoing ports are disabled. So let's just cancel this. And we can do UFW, allow. So now we've opened port 80, which is HTTP, and port 443, which is HTTPS. So now if we do, oh, wait, I forgot. You can't do an apt update without the DNS port. Otherwise, it doesn't know where it's going or can't resolve host names to IPs. So UFW allow out 53 is the DNS port. Now we can do apt get update. There we go. Works good. Now, if you need to turn off the firewall for some reason, like perhaps testing if you have a problem with your firewall, it's just UFW disable. And then now the firewall is completely off. And if you really mess things up and you want to start over, you can do a UFW reset. That will delete all the rules. So UFW status repose. And we have inactive and no rules. And we have to go all the way back to the beginning and do UFW allow SSH. And UFW enable. Yes. And UFW status. And we're gotten rid of all the rules. Although you do notice that the deny outgoing hasn't changed. I think that's a bug in the reset. Or maybe it's a feature.